Listen, I need to tell you something massive that's about to explode across the NFL. If you love football drama, if you're hungry for insider moves that reshape entire franchises, hit that subscribe button right now. We're building something special here. A community of real fans who get the unfiltered truth, and we need you to help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Trust me, you'll want to be here for what's coming. Now let's dive into this absolute bombshell. The Miami Dolphins just got destroyed. I'm talking complete annihilation. The Cleveland Browns didn't just beat them, they embarrassed them on national television with a crushing 31-6 beatdown. This wasn't competitive. This wasn't close. This was a public execution of everything Miami thought they were supposed to be this season. The so-called offensive juggernaut, the team that was supposed to run circles around defenses with their speed and creativity, just looked completely lost out there. They looked like a team that had given up, like a team that had no identity anymore, like a team that desperately needs something, anything to change. And here's where it gets absolutely wild, because according to a major insider report that just dropped, the Dolphins are about to do something shocking. They're about to make a move that nobody saw coming. They're reportedly targeting a trade for Shedeur Sanders, the polarizing rookie quarterback sitting on Cleveland's bench who hasn't played a single snap this season. Yes, you heard that correctly. Miami is apparently so desperate, so panicked about where this season is heading, that they're willing to blow everything up and start over with an unproven rookie who's been riding the pine all year. The report comes from Dovich Sam over at Bleacher Report, and he's not some random blogger throwing takes at the wall. This guy has real connections, real sources inside these organizations, and what he's saying should terrify Tua Tagovailoa and excite anyone who's tired of watching this Dolphins offense sputter and fail week after week. Sam wrote that the team could clean house with a blockbuster trade, and he specifically named Shedeur Sanders as the target. He pointed out that Cleveland has been patient with Sanders' development, but that the rookie could be a strong trade chip if the Browns fully commit to their other quarterback. And here's the kicker. Sam said, teams like the Dolphins could surely use an influx of new energy, and it will be interesting to see if anyone pursues Sanders before the trade deadline. That deadline is November 4th. We're talking less than 2 weeks away now. The clock is ticking, and after what we all witnessed in Cleveland after watching Tua throw another pair of interceptions and look completely overwhelmed by a defense that isn't even considered elite, you have to wonder if Miami is already making phone calls. You have to wonder if Mike McDaniel is sitting in his office right now, staring at game film, realizing that his entire offensive philosophy has collapsed without Tyreek Hill, and thinking that maybe, just maybe, the problem isn't the system. Maybe it's the guy running it. Let's talk about what actually happened in that Cleveland game, because we need to understand just how bad things have gotten. The Dolphins didn't just lose, they looked completely incompetent on offense. Everything that was supposed to make this team dangerous, all that pre-snap motion, all those jet sweeps and manufactured touches, all of it just evaporated. Cleveland's defense wasn't confused for a second. They knew exactly what was coming. They sat back, they waited for Tua to make mistakes, and he obliged them over and over again. The interceptions were bad, really bad. One of them was thrown directly into triple coverage, like Tua forgot there were defenders on the field. Another one came off a ball that just floated through the air with no velocity, giving the safety all day to break on it and make the pick. This is the pattern we've seen all season. Ever since Tyreek Hill went down with that season-ending injury, this offense has looked completely different. Tyreek wasn't just another weapon, he was the weapon, the guy who made everything else work. His speed forced defenses to respect the deep ball. His ability to take a simple screen pass and turn it into a 60-yard touchdown kept safeties playing back and opened up the entire middle of the field. Without him, defenses are just loading the box, playing aggressive man coverage, and daring Tua to beat them downfield. And guess what? He can't do it. He's not that guy. He never has been that guy. The numbers tell the story, and they're brutal. Through 7 games, Tua has thrown 10 interceptions, 10 picks in 7 games. That's not just bad, that's catastrophic. He's only thrown 11 touchdown passes, meaning his touchdown to interception ratio is basically 1-to-1. That's backup quarterback production. That's not franchise quarterback production. This is a guy who's supposed to be in his prime, who's played in this system for years now, who was supposedly the perfect fit for Mike McDaniel's scheme. And yet he's turning the ball over at an alarming alarming rate. He's missing open receivers, and he's making decisions that suggest he's either seeing ghosts in the pocket or he's just completely lost confidence in his ability to make NFL throws. Miami's record reflects all of this. They're 1-6. 1 win, 6 losses. That 1 win feels like it happened in a different lifetime. It feels like a fluke. Something that happened when the other team made more mistakes than Miami did. The 6 losses feel like the reality. This is a bad football team, and it's getting worse every week. They're not competitive. They're not close to figuring things out. They're heading toward a top 5 draft pick at this rate, and that's not where anyone expected this franchise to be after making the playoffs last season. So where does the blame fall? In the NFL, when a team with talent underperforms this badly, there are only 2 places to point fingers: the quarterback and the head coach. And both Tua and Mike McDaniel are squarely in the hot seat right now. McDaniel, the supposed offensive genius who was going to revolutionize the game with his creativity and innovation, suddenly looks very ordinary. All that window dressing, all that motion and deception, it only works when you have the players to execute it and the quarterback to make it dangerous. Without Tyreek stretching the field, McDaniel's offense has been exposed as overly complicated and predictable. Defenses aren't fooled anymore. They're just playing sound football, trusting their eyes, and making Miami beat them with execution, and Miami can't do it. The reports about McDaniel's job security are fascinating because they're contradictory, which tells you everything you need to know. On one hand, owner Stephen Ross reportedly likes McDaniel. He believes in him. He thinks the system works. On the other hand, McDaniel remains on the hot seat after another loss. You know what that means in NFL speak? It means the owner is trying to be supportive publicly while privately realizing that 1-6 isn't acceptable no matter how much you like someone's personality or believe in their philosophy. Nobody survives a season like this without major changes. Nobody. McDaniel has to know this. He's not stupid. He understands that his job is on the line, that finishing this season with 3 or 4 wins isn't going to cut it, that the patience is running out, and that's why this Shedeur Sanders report makes so much sense. Because if you're Mike McDaniel and you're trying to save your job, what do? You can't fire yourself. You can't go back in time and prevent Tyreek's injury, but you can change the quarterback. You can make a bold move that shows ownership. You're not just accepting failure, that you're being proactive, that you have a plan to fix this disaster. Trading for Shedeur Sanders would be exactly that kind of move. It would be McDaniel saying, "This isn't my fault, it's the quarterback's fault, and here's my solution." Now let's talk about Shedeur Sanders himself, because this kid is absolutely fascinating. He's the most talked about player who hasn't played. He's generated more headlines sitting on the bench than most starters generate on the field. Why? Because of what he did in college, and because of who he is. The college stats are absolutely ridiculous. At Colorado, Sanders completed 74% of his passes. Let me say that again for the people in the back. 74% completion percentage. That's not just good, that's video game numbers. He threw for over 4,300 yards and 37 touchdowns. Those are Heisman Trophy level statistics. This wasn't some game manager dinking and dunking his way to decent numbers. This was a gunslinger taking shots downfield, making every throw, putting up points in bunches. But here's where it gets complicated. Despite those gaudy numbers, Sanders fell in the draft. He wasn't a top 10 pick. He wasn't even a first round pick. Why? Because NFL teams had questions. They worried about his attitude. They worried about whether he was a system quarterback who benefited from elite college talent around him. They worried about his leadership style, which is more brash and confident than what most coaches want from a young quarterback. So he slid, and Cleveland grabbed him, thinking they got a steal. But then something strange happened. Cleveland didn't play him. They didn't even make him the backup. He's been the third string guy all season, watching from the sidelines while their other quarterbacks get all the reps. Why would Cleveland do that? Because they've decided to commit fully to their other quarterback. They've decided that their future is with someone else, which makes Sanders expendable. And that's the key word here. Expendable. If you're a valuable part of your team's future, you're not available in trade talks. But if you're the odd man out, if you're the talented player who doesn't fit the current plan, then you become exactly what Dovich Sam called him, a strong trade chip. Sanders has value because of his arm talent, his college production, and his potential, but he doesn't have value to Cleveland specifically because they've chosen a different path. That makes him perfect for a trade. Think about what Miami would be getting if they pulled the trigger on this deal. They'd be getting a 23-year-old quarterback with a cannon arm and the kind of swagger that could energize an entire locker room. They'd be getting someone who completed nearly 3/4 of his passes in college and threw almost 40 touchdowns. They'd be getting a player with massive upside who hasn't been beaten down by NFL defenses yet, who hasn't developed bad habits, who still believes he's destined for greatness. That kind of confidence can be contagious. It can change the entire vibe of a struggling team, and make no mistake, Miami desperately needs a vibe change right now. But here's the flip side, and it's a big one. Sanders hasn't played a single NFL snap, not one. Everything we know about him comes from college tape and practice reports. We have no idea if his game will translate to the professional level. We don't know if he can read NFL defenses at full speed. We don't know if his arm strength will matter when he's facing cornerbacks and safeties who are just as fast as the receivers he's throwing to. We don't know if his confident personality will inspire teammates or alienate them. This is a complete mystery box situation. You're trading real assets for an unknown commodity, hoping that the potential matches the reality. And that's exactly why Miami might do it. Because when you're 1-6, when your season is already lost, when your quarterback is throwing interceptions at a historic rate, you have nothing to lose. You can't make things worse. The worst case scenario is that Sanders comes in and struggles, and you finish the season with 3 wins instead of 4. Who cares? You're not making the playoffs either way. But the best case scenario, that's what makes this trade so appealing. The best case scenario is that Sanders comes in, looks comfortable immediately, shows flashes of that college brilliance, and gives Miami something to build on heading into next season. That's worth the risk when the alternative is running it back with Tua and hoping he magically rediscovers the form he showed 2 years ago. The timing of all this matters enormously. The trade deadline is November 4th, which means we're in the final 2 weeks of deal-making season. After that, rosters are locked. You're stuck with what you have. So if Miami is going to make a move, it has to happen soon. They play Atlanta this week, and that game looks like another loss waiting to happen. If they fall to 1-7, if Tua throws a couple more interceptions, if the offense continues to look lifeless and predictable, the pressure to do something dramatic is going to become overwhelming. Owner Stephen Ross is going to demand answers. The fan base is going to be in full revolt, and McDaniel is going to need a lifeline. That lifeline is Shedeur Sanders. Trading for him accomplishes multiple things at once. It gives McDaniel a scapegoat for this season's failures. He can say the problem was Tua, not the system, and now we've upgraded the position. It buys McDaniel more time because ownership can't judge him fairly with a rookie quarterback learning on the fly. It energizes the fan base because at least something is changing. At least the team is trying to fix the problems instead of accepting mediocrity. And it gives Miami a potential franchise quarterback to build around if Sanders turns out to be as good as his college stats suggest. What would Cleveland want in return? That's the million-dollar question. They're not going to give Sanders away for nothing. They invested a draft pick in him, and they know other teams are desperate for quarterback help. Miami would probably have to part with at least a second-round pick, maybe a third-rounder as well. They might need to include a player, someone Cleveland needs at a position of weakness. And here's the wildest possibility. What if Miami offered Tua in the trade? What if it was a straight-up quarterback swap, Sanders for Tagovailoa? Cleveland gets a veteran who's started playoff games and shown he can be productive in the right system. Miami gets the high-ceiling rookie who might be the next big thing. Both teams get a fresh start at the position. Would Cleveland take that deal? Maybe. Tua's contract isn't prohibitive. He's still young enough that a change of scenery could help him rediscover his confidence. And Cleveland might view him as a better backup option than what they currently have. Would Miami make that offer? Absolutely. In a heartbeat. They need to move on from Tua anyway. His regression is too severe to ignore. Getting anything of value for him is a win at this point. And if that value happens to be a talented young quarterback with unlimited potential, you make that trade every single time. The media reaction to this would be absolutely insane. Imagine the press conference where Miami introduces Shedeur Sanders as their new quarterback. Imagine the questions, the speculation, the analysis. Every talking head in sports media would have an opinion. Some would call it a desperate move by a franchise in crisis. Others would praise Miami for being bold, for not accepting failure, for swinging for the fences. The debate would rage for weeks. And you know what? That's exactly what Miami needs right now. They need people talking about them for something other than how badly they're losing games. They need buzz, energy, excitement. Sanders brings all of that whether he works out or not. For Sanders himself, this would be the opportunity of a lifetime. He's been sitting on Cleveland's bench, watching lesser talents get playing time, wondering when his moment will come. A trade to Miami would give him immediate playing time, a chance to prove all the doubters wrong, and a platform to showcase his abilities. He'd be walking into a disaster situation, sure, but he'd also be walking into a situation where expectations are rock bottom. Nobody expects the Dolphins to win anything this year. That means Sanders could play freely, take risks, make mistakes, without facing the kind of pressure that crushes some young quarterbacks. He could use the rest of this season as an extended audition for the starting job in 2026. And that's ultimately what this is about. Miami isn't trading for Sanders to save the 2025 season. That ship has sailed. They're trading for him to save the future. They're trading for him because they can't go into next year with Tua as the starter and McDaniel as the coach without giving both of them a legitimate chance to succeed with different pieces. The offense is broken, everyone can see that, but is it broken because of the scheme? Or is it broken because the quarterback can't execute the scheme without a dominant receiver doing half the work for him? Trading for Sanders answers that question. If the offense still struggles with a different quarterback, then maybe the problem really is McDaniel's system. But if Sanders comes in and suddenly guys are getting open, balls are getting delivered on time, and points are going on the board, then Miami will know they made the right decision moving on from Tua. The risk is massive, I won't pretend otherwise. You're potentially giving up significant draft capital for a player who might flame out spectacularly. Sanders could come in, struggle to read defenses, hold onto the ball too long, take unnecessary sacks, throw interceptions at an even worse rate than Tua. The personality that looks like confidence could reveal itself as arrogance that teammates can't stand. The college success could be completely fool's gold, the product of facing inferior competition and having more time in the pocket than he'll ever get in the NFL. All of that is possible. All of that could happen. But here's what I keep coming back to. What's the alternative? Running it back with Tua, watching him throw interception after interception, finishing the season with 3 or 4 wins, and then having the exact same quarterback controversy next offseason. That's not a plan. That's just delaying the inevitable. At some point, Miami has to make a decision about their quarterback position. At some point, they have to either commit fully to Tua or move on. And after watching him throw 10 picks in 7 games, after watching the offense completely fall apart without Tyreek Hill, after watching the defense have to play perfect football just to keep games close, I think the decision is pretty clear. Tua isn't the guy. He's a good player who needs everything around him to be perfect, and in the NFL, nothing is ever perfect. Sanders represents hope. He represents the unknown. He represents the chance that maybe, just maybe, Miami strikes gold with a quarterback who fell in the draft because teams were scared of his personality rather than his arm talent. Those are the kinds of risks that change franchises. You don't build a championship team by playing it safe and hoping your struggling quarterback figures things out. You build a championship team by being aggressive, by making moves that might blow up in your face, but might also transform your entire organization. The Dolphins are staring down a lost season. They're 1-6 with no realistic path to the playoffs. Their franchise quarterback looks broken. Their genius head coach looks ordinary. Their high-powered offense looks pedestrian without their best playmaker. Something has to change. Someone has to step up and make a decision that gives this team a chance to be relevant again. Trading for Shedeur Sanders would be exactly that kind of decision. It would be bold. It would be risky. It would be the ultimate swing for the fences move by a franchise that has nothing left to lose. And honestly, after watching that pathetic performance in Cleveland, after seeing Tua look terrified in the pocket, after witnessing an offense that used to score points in bunches struggle to crack double digits, I think Miami has to do it. They have to make this trade. They have to see what they have in Sanders. Because the alternative, sticking with the status quo and hoping things magically improve, that's not a strategy. That's just accepting failure. And I don't think Stephen Ross, I don't think Mike McDaniel, and I certainly don't think the Miami Dolphins fan base is ready to accept that. Not yet. Not when there's still a chance to salvage something from this disaster of a season by taking a chance on a talented young quarterback who might just be the answer everyone's looking for.